Morning. Where I am, it's Wednesday morning. I don't know where it is, what it is, where you are, or when you are connecting with this, but right now, my here and now is Wednesday morning, and from it, I send warmest wishes to you. I hope you're having a really good time. Bibliomancy 22. Each day I find a book randomly without looking. I reach out to one of my bookshelves and grab a book. And then I will randomly flick into it and find a sentence and see what it tells me. It will tell me very little about the book, but tell me something about myself. I call it bibliomancy, which is an ancient art, which is not quite what I'm doing, but let's not worry about it. Of course, a random sentence from a book tells me little about the book and a lot about myself. The same is true when you hear rumors about other people or have a short meeting with someone. It tells you very little about them and an awful lot about yourself, but that's another matter. Today I found this, or rather my hand found this as my eyes looked elsewhere. Spring Night by a Norwegian writer who I will now proceed to mispronounce, Tarjei Vesaas. Please, if anyone from Norway is listening to this, accept my apologies. No insult is intended. He's a gorgeous writer. He was nominated for, or in consideration for the Nobel Prize a number of times in the 1960s, apparently. He wrote, I've read a number of his, The Birds, A Boat in the Evening, but most particularly a book called The Ice Palace, which is an extraordinary book, really extraordinary, one of those books that you read and images from it, or for me anyway, have just become part of me. Extraordinary, very sad book in a lot of ways, but extraordinary and beautiful and visionary book. This one, Spring Night, I don't remember much about it, but I do remember thinking at the time that it was very good indeed. But I think he's a stunning writer, so there we go. A lot of writers from Norway, Iceland, in a sort of realistic, poetic, mythological kind of way, really powerful to me. Anyway, let's see what I find in here. I find myself on page 77. You know very well why I have to talk to you. You've got to explain why you behaved like you did. You know very well why I have to talk to you. You have to explain why you behaved like you did. Difficult conversations. You know very well why I have to talk to you. We need to have a difficult conversation. You have to explain. And without explanation, we can achieve no reconciliation or no understanding. And without that, we cannot move forward. Except also in that sentence, there is an assumption of entitlement by the speaker. When I say, sorry, you need to explain that, there is always a little question of, why do you need to explain that? I might want you to explain that, but do I have the right to ask you to explain yourself? Am I simply projecting my entitlement and sense of moral or ethical superiority on you? Sorry, I think that I'm better than you, so I demand that you explain or justify yourself. You need to explain yourself. There seems to me a fork in understanding. Yes, we need to have difficult conversations, including with ourselves. Why did I do that? Why did I feel driven to do that? And those difficult conversations are by definition difficult. But also sometimes when we say you need to do that, there's a second question. By what right do I say you need to do that? Somebody doesn't have to explain themselves to me. They can choose not to explain themselves to me. And sometimes when I look at myself and go, I need to understand why I did that, perhaps that understanding is not within my grasp right now. And so I need to simply accept, observe, move on. Of course, one of the jobs that I do these days is as coach and a mentor. And one of the key things that I do with people when they come and say, so-and-so did this, or I feel this, or I'm worried about this, is to be the person who says, are you able to explain? Why does that need explaining? In other words, to point out the points in a client's thinking where perhaps they are making assumptions, which, if they challenge those assumptions, might lead to more productive journeys of thinking. Simple question: is the story you are telling yourself really true? I think that question comes from Byron Katie, if I remember rightly. Anyway, there's some thinking for me today. Do I need to ask people to explain themselves? Do people have a right to ask me to explain myself? If so, how do we engage in difficult conversations? If you get nothing else, I encourage you to go here. He really is a stunning writer. The Ice Palace is, in some ways, one of the better books I've ever read in my life. Whatever you're up to on this Wednesday, may it be full of joy, full of joy. If there's anything I can do for you, reach out. It's what I'm here for.